Hi, everybody, and welcome to our webinar, Making the Future Seamless, Your Company and VDI, Now and Next. My name is Drew Darnborough. I'm Director of Marketing for Neverware, and I will be your host today. Thank you all for joining. So just looking ahead at what we'll cover in today's session, we'll start with some housekeeping items, move into introductions of our speakers, talk a little bit about the future according to Neverware, and then move over to look at both how Chrome Enterprise and how Citrix view that as well. And then finally answer some questions at the end. You'll see at the top of your screen that there is a URL for a slides link. That's where you can go. It is case sensitive, so be careful there with that. But go there and you can type in your questions and we'll get to those at the very end. So some of the housekeeping sessions. As I mentioned, we'd love to hear from you, so ask questions via that format. You can also tweet about our discussion. So our Twitter is @Neverware, and you can use the hashtag VDINowNext to make sure that we see it. We'll also be doing a recording of this, obviously, that we'll be posting to the YouTube channel immediately after the event. So before we get to introducing our guests, I wanted to say a little bit about Neverware. We are a Google partner and also a Google-backed company. We've been around since 2011, and in 2015, we introduced Cloud Ready to the market. As you can see here on the slide, Cloud Ready is an operating system that essentially converts any x86 hardware into a Chrome device, very similar to a Chromebook. A little more detail about that last bit here on this slide. So Cloud Ready is built on open source Chromium, which is the same foundation as Chrome OS and Chromebooks. While Cloud Ready and Chrome OS are very similar, there are some differences, as you can see here. Perhaps the biggest difference, as noted here, is that while Chrome OS is only available on official Chrome hardware, Cloud Ready can be installed on a wide array of hardware, up to about 10 to 12 years old. And there are some other differences as well. There's a URL there at the bottom that you can visit to learn more about that. With that out of the way, let's move to introducing our speakers today. We'll start with our guests. Up first, we have Richard Ashe from Google. And Richard, do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Google?
Hi, everyone. This is Richard. I am a Chrome Technology Partner Manager aligned with Citrix and Neverware. And I work with technology partners. And these are companies that have solutions that are critical to our customers as they use Chrome browser, Chrome OS, and our Chrome Enterprise solutions.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you for being here with us. And next up, we have Damon Duncan from Citrix. Hi, Damon.
Hey, Forrest. Glad to be here with everybody today. So my name is Damon Duncan. I am a technology specialist within the Citrix organization. My role is specifically in training our sales organization, SEs, CAMs, and ERMs on the Citrix product suite. Everything up to non-networking. So all the virtualization, endpoint management, content collaboration products fall under my wheelhouse.
Excellent. And thank you as well for joining us. We really appreciate having both of you here. So here in the room with me, I have two colleagues from Neverware. First, we have Forrest Smith. Forrest, you want to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Forrest. I'm the Director of Product and Customer Experience here at Neverware. I've been working here at Neverware for 6 years and on Cloud Ready since we started research and development on it about 4.5 years ago now. So Cloud Ready's been a real focus of ours here, and it's been a real passion of ours learning about how it can fit into the Chrome ecosystem and learning how powerful tools that are used with it, like Citrix and Chrome Enterprise, can be. So I'll echo that we're grateful to have our guests with us today, and that we're excited to tell you a little bit about how they all fit together.
Excellent. And then finally here with me as well, we have Nick Fuchs, who is a virtualization specialist. So Nick, want to tell us a little bit about that, what that means?
Sure. So I joined Cloud Ready about a year ago, coming from a background about a decade of experience working in end user computing for a variety of enterprise organizations, kind of just working with Forrest on the product management side, making sure we're aligning our product with what enterprise technology, the direction of enterprise technology.
Perfect. Okay, and so to get us started with today's topic, I'm going to turn it over to Nick.
Sure. Thanks, Drew. So to set the stage a little bit, let's talk a little bit about where the current strategy of leveraging VDI currently lies with most enterprise organizations. First is kind of addressing what's the model of computing that currently exists. Most organizations are leveraging Citrix to provide a full desktop experience or a hosted shared desktop experience, leveraging Windows 7, Windows XP, or hopefully not Windows XP, Windows 10. And basically the point I'm trying to make is that the computing is being done on the server side. And users are connecting to this server-hosted virtual session using a single-purpose thin client device like Wise ThinOS or Stratodesk or iGel. And these desktop sessions that they're connecting to are often hosted on their on-premise infrastructure. And with that said, all of the security tooling and the focus is on the data center, it's on the network, it's on that virtual desktop layer. IT teams are concerned with applications like antivirus or USB lockdown tools, group policy, BitLocker, and all of these application layer tools have been kind of the focal point. And as we go deeper into a cloud-focused future, this focal point around security becomes even more paramount.
Yeah, this is Forrest taking over. We think a lot about here at Neverware how the concerns and focuses that have brought people to VDI in the past and that continue to drive VDI tool adoption now will change as things go by, and will really need to evolve to accommodate the changing challenges of the future. So what we want to highlight here is that probably anybody who's on this webinar and anybody who you might know and consider a colleague in the same field is very focused on security, and not just the way that it currently is implemented, but the way that it may evolve and the unknowns that may come up in the future. Security is a growing concern. It's the repercussions for not having implemented security continue to make bigger and bigger headlines for bigger and bigger organizations, but smaller and smaller organizations are becoming targets too. So overall, the focus on security is growing, but the breadth of places that need to be secured, we think, is growing dramatically. So in addition to having enterprise-grade security from solutions like Citrix, which probably a lot of folks on this webinar already have, we think endpoints need to get up to speed with that level of focus. And that's why we think that Cloud Ready paired with Chrome Enterprise and Citrix really starts to make a big difference as you move into the future. So sometimes we find it most useful to describe where things are heading by saying what we don't think is going to happen. One of the models that, from our perspective, doesn't make a lot of sense, and we feel like we've learned this from working with the folks over at Google, as well as from seeing leading enterprise solutions kind of improve the model and lead the way, is that antivirus or protection shouldn't be something you add on top of the devices that you're already using or on the solutions you already have. Things should be implemented securely by default, and they should be reliable to be secure and updated to stay secure, whether or not you're proactively pursuing that. You shouldn't have to pay extra, and you shouldn't have to make changes. That's a real focus of ours, and we think a real strength of the solutions that we're presenting as a group today. So what does the future look like? Well, in addition to having that theme of being secure by default across not just your data center and your Citrix deployments, but also your endpoints and the tools that manage them, we think that you gain a whole lot of advantages when you move to other models too. And sometimes those are doors unlocked by being more secure. When your endpoints are more secure, they can do a greater amount of the computing. They can move away from that whole desktop VDI model and start to mix local hardware accelerated browsing and local applications with remote hosted applications and desktops. You can leverage multiple clouds and local infrastructure instead of just a lockdown local infrastructure. And you can have endpoints that do a wider variety of workflows under a single management umbrella. That's what we really think of as Cloud Ready bringing to the VDI discussion, and paired with Citrix and Chrome OS, Chrome Enterprise management tools, we think that all of that is possible right now.
So the question naturally becomes, how do we get there? And I'm sure Richard from Google and Damon from Citrix, who you'll hear from more in a moment, will agree that the answer is finding solutions that give you the flexibility, manageability, and security to meet the needs of your organization now, with the capacity to transform and adapt at the pace of your organization's adoption of this cloud-focused, browser-first model of the future that Forrest just described. So Forrest, you want to elaborate a little bit more on how Cloud Ready kind of fills that flexibility, manageability, and security piece?
Absolutely, yes. What we really like to focus on is that big organizations and small organizations alike have ways of doing things that work for them now. Security and manageability is a focus today as well as tomorrow. So the way that you currently work has to be accommodated by solutions that you use. And then those solutions need to roll and adapt with you as you make changes for the future. Cloud Ready paired with Citrix and Chrome Enterprise allow you to keep doing the VDI model that you already have on the devices that you already have, while adding new Chrome devices as you go and evolving the way that your clients either attach to resources like VDI, local or cloud hosted, or use local resources as time goes by. So that flexibility to get started now without changing anything minimizes risk and minimizes change management pain for your users and your IT organization. And then later gives you the freedom without changing your operating system or your management ecosystem to evolve the way that you use those tools and to grow a larger variety of roles and workflows in which you use those tools. We think really something that's at the heart of that is the management console that sort of manages all Chrome OS devices and Cloud Ready devices, and that's built by Google. That's that Chrome Enterprise toolset. We're really excited to have Richard here, who's an expert in that as well as all things Chrome. And we're just hoping to pose a couple of questions that would highlight from his point of view how impactful and powerful Chrome Enterprise can be. So to kick things off there, I think I'll just ask you, Richard, when you compare Chrome Enterprise to sort of previous generations of device management and endpoint solutions, where do you see the highlights of the benefits that this new model brings?
Thanks very much, Forrest. So when I look at what we're hearing from customers, consistently what we're hearing, especially when you look at industries where Chrome has been really successful, and good examples of that, first was K-12 education. Then we saw healthcare, retail, and manufacturing, and then remote workers across industries. So the reason we were seeing this sort of adoption and how that relates to Chrome management is that in all those cases, you have very few IT admins, and you have a huge number of users who are often geographically dispersed, and they don't have local desktop support. So in the old way of doing things, you might actually count on having a desktop support person to physically go out and go to each device and touch it and install software or troubleshoot. And in the new environments where you have really computing could be anywhere, especially with these really large organizations with very few IT staff, the old way of doing things just became, it's no longer feasible for many of these organizations. They just are crushed under the weight of admin. And what Chrome management allows them to do is take back all that time that was spent physically troubleshooting or re-imaging devices and do all that remotely from a management console that is so easy to use. That's really a part-time job, and B, doesn't really require extensive training. With very little or no training, an admin is able to deploy Chrome devices at scale. And when we say scale, this is thousands or tens of thousands of devices or even hundreds of thousands of devices from a single admin. And Chrome management allows them not only the ability to be much more productive as an IT admin, but also gives them flexibility so that they could maybe start with a use case where the Chrome device is used as a shared device, and then pivot and use that for another use case, such as a managed guest session where someone's going to a Chrome device that's sort of set up as a kiosk and they're just using that without logging in. Or they're going to maybe pivot that same device and use it differently and make that a logged in device used by one specific dedicated user. And with Chrome, the change across all those different use cases would take about 2 to 3 minutes tops for as many devices as you want. And then finally, all of this is done in the most secure way possible. And Chrome really, as you mentioned earlier, has really created a paradigm shift in security in terms of how we are able to empower IT admins to lock down devices in any way they need to make sure it is the most secure device out there. You combine that with Citrix, which has all of the apps managed remotely in one secure location or in the cloud. The combination of the two, we think, is really the most secure solution that they can find for endpoints.
Great. I think the last thing that I'd like to ask you, Richard, is when you think about the way that these two solutions tie together, what do you think is maybe the best highlight feature of how Chrome Enterprise manages devices, Cloud Ready or Chrome OS, specifically in a VDI environment for customers who are already using VDI and getting started with Chrome? What's one of the things that makes it easiest or best or most innovative or secure?
Great question. So with VDI, many customers are using VDI so they can have a standardized secure image across all their desktops, or can have an easily customized image while reducing the effort by IT admins. To lock that down, Chrome OS makes it much easier, as well as with Neverware Cloud Ready, all through Chrome management, to lock down those devices for, let's say, a managed guest session. So someone's coming up to the device and using that without a login. Or it could be in kiosk mode. Perhaps it's locked down right into the Citrix workspace experience. Or this could be a device that's used as a loaner device, using our grab and go capability, where they can just take the device, borrow it, and put it back on the rack, and their profiles wipe from the device as soon as they log out. Or it could be just a traditional dedicated desktop. All that could be done just with a few clicks by the admin, and then that device will be locked down to that mode until they need to change it again. We have a good example of one customer using Citrix in Chrome OS, and they are in the retail space, and they will literally wipe everything off the device, including the Citrix workspace software, each and every time they log out. Now, we think that is an extreme security posture and not probably necessary for most organizations, but it just shows you the extent to which a customer can control that environment together with Citrix and Chrome OS.
Awesome. Thanks so much for those answers. I think you're highlighting a theme that really is exactly what we hoped you might bring to the table for this webinar, which is that having devices that can be so secure but still so flexible to accommodate a huge variety of workflows across the whole gamut of ways that enterprises use computers today, with and without VDI, is huge. To be able to take that security posture and then position your organization for the future, whatever the use cases, workflows, vendors, and tools that you might run into later that maybe you can't anticipate now, is what makes this, we think, such a great foundation for folks who are trying to prepare today for what's coming next, whether they have a big plan in place already or whether they're just trying to be ready for anything. But no matter how good of a foundation you have for management and security, you have to get work done. And that's why we made sure to invite a second guest to our panel today. Damon's here from Citrix. We introduced him earlier. And I think we'll have Nick ask Damon a question or two and let Damon talk about how getting work done on Citrix, like folks have been doing for a long, long time really well, can happen especially well on Chrome Cloud Ready and Chrome Enterprise.
Yeah, absolutely. Damon, just following up, I think you and I had a pretty in-depth discussion at Citrix Synergy, talking about Citrix's reinvention of the workspace app and where the focus is going. I think it would be awesome for you to highlight some of that perspective that you shared with me to the rest of the audience of this webinar.
Sure. So I know the conversation, you and I, we talked at Synergy and we had dinner afterwards, which was really nice to get down and sit down and meet with you in person. And, you know, one of the things that Citrix drove and one of the things they did is they started doing some digging into, you know, how efficient workers actually are in their skills in their day-to-day jobs. And what people were finding out through the analytics and the marketing and everything else is that companies spend on average between $800 to $1,000 per user per year on complexity issues with their environments. So Citrix, you know, went back to I'm not going to say went back to the drawing board, but started thinking about how can we make the users more efficient while still giving them a consistent user experience across any device that we work on, whether it be a Chrome OS or whether it be a Windows endpoint or anything else. And that was the evolution of what we would call the workspace suite, or what is going to be dubbed the intelligent workspace that's coming out. And it was a very holistic approach to the workspace, about secure delivery of applications, content delivered in an integrated manner, universal management, visibility, and a flexible perimeter for the customers that are out there.
Yeah, so you cover a lot of ground now with that workspace app, and it seems to be really orientated towards kind of the future model that Forrest described in his kind of viewpoint on how Neverware thinks about the future of computing.
Right.
And kind of given some of those points you just noted, can you kind of speak a little bit more to the workspace app's alignment with the kind of Chrome ecosystem's secure browser-first model of computing?
Absolutely. So that was one of the things that Citrix has really been working on, is they really do want, and it's one thing that we really drive with our sales teams and even our regular support teams, is any device, anywhere, anytime. So we want to be able to work on any device, anywhere, at any time, no matter how they're connecting, whether it's through a browser, which is the way of the future, which is the way a lot of companies are going, is a more browser-based interaction with the environment. So we have been working on that one for years. I've been in the support organization and have supported browser-based connections with Citrix environments for 3.5 to 4 years. So it is something that's always been there, and there are users and companies who prefer that method, and we want to keep them around, and we want to make them happy and keep driving that browser-based connection.
Got it. Thanks a lot, Damon. And just jumping over to the slide that's on the screen now, kind of showing the a visual interaction of how all these different technologies communicate with each other. And Forrest can kind of take you through a little bit, and Damon and Richard, feel free to jump in to clarify or add any meat to any of the points.
Yeah, I think to just kind of build off of what Damon was saying, being able to work any place, anytime, and on any infrastructure, right? Whether it's something hosted in the cloud or locally, whether it's a SaaS app accessed through a workspace client and using Citrix's secure SSO, or something that's accessed on an Android device or on a new Chrome device or on Cloud Ready. We think that kind of flexibility is really what makes Chrome and Cloud Ready and Chrome Enterprise paired with Citrix a better model for computing than, say, a traditional thin client conversion tool or traditional thin clients. Because while you may get great desktop VDI or even single apps, we really believe in not having clients dictate or set limits on how work gets done. You want to be able to reposition those devices on the fly every week or every month, as Richard alluded to, from single-purpose devices to multi-purpose devices, single-user devices to multi-user devices. And the architecture you're seeing on the screen here just highlights how, there's a lot of pieces there, but it's made simple, as Richard said, for IT admins when they manage the devices, so they can focus their time and energy on the services and tools that are more sophisticated, like Citrix, and running things in the cloud as the rest of their infrastructure moves up and out. So we think that kind of flexibility paired with, of course, best-in-class security that you never compromise on and that you don't have to worry about adding on after the fact or paying extra for, really makes this solution. And that's why we really went and tried to study and understand how these three things pair together. And we've been lucky enough to have Richard and Damon both really guide us through how their solutions work and let us build what we think is a really great offering together. So that offering comes through the Citrix Ready program. So this is a program that Cloud Ready and the Citrix team have worked together on to make sure that, just like brand new Chrome OS devices, Cloud Ready is certified for all the kinds of behavior and performance and reliability that you would expect if you're going to use this in an enterprise production environment. So Damon, I don't know if you want to say just a word or two about what the Citrix Ready program means for you guys inside of Citrix.
Sure. So our Citrix Ready program it's a way that our engineering and our internal teams, it's how they qualify the vendors that are out there and what those vendors go through to receive Citrix Ready. What they put into place in their products to make their products work within the Citrix environment and the ecosystems. I know one of the things that pops up here for me, that's something that I always focus on, is the HDX 3D Pro graphics app support. And we have a number of AutoCAD customers that use AutoCAD across Citrix environments across their network flawlessly, and 3D rendering show up as if they were on the local machine and not being streamed across a network. So that's a really big one. That's one I always like to touch on. So it's just shows what Cloud Ready has gone through and what Neverware has gone through to make Cloud Ready even better for the Citrix environment.
That's fantastic. Thank you. So I think one of the questions that always comes up, when we talk about things like this, especially when we talk about things like certification, is sort of actually getting a feel for how companies are actually using these in real life. And it's always helpful to have a couple of different, case studies or profiles to look at to understand what's actually happening there. So we've got two here. One of them, unfortunately, we had to anonymize because, as you can see on the screen, it's a financial services customer. That's typically an industry that's a little bit more guarded about what they do and who they're using. But as you can see on the screen, it's a large number of employees. It's a multinational company, and they're currently using our solutions, our 3-company solutions, across the UK and India. So in India, where they're conducting back office and customer service operations across not only offices but remote workers. So there's that need for security, and they've put Cloud Ready on older Windows 7 era laptops, and then are using Citrix and Chrome Enterprise to really manage those from the UK. And then looking over at Sanmina on the other side, you can see another multinational corporation where they're using our company's solutions in China, Brazil, and Mexico for something very similar. So in that case, what they're doing is across manufacturing facilities, they have Cloud Ready running on these machines on manufacturing floors. And whenever some of the workers have the need to access, so something like a typical, like a Microsoft application or something like that, they were able to use Citrix to gain access to that on the factory floor. So with that in mind, it is question time. And if you have questions, as I said earlier, please just visit that URL at the top. A reminder that it is case sensitive when you put that in, and we'll get to your questions as they come in. But to start, I think we did have one that was a little bit, it was, how does Cloud Ready work as a mobile laptop solution on existing hardware? And Nick and Forrest, if you want to take us through that.
So that's actually a really good question, and a good use case to underline in terms of ideal use cases for Cloud Ready and Chrome OS and Citrix. And I think it's a use case that a lot of enterprise organizations think about, and how they give devices, either rental devices or mobile devices for people to take out of the office. How do they secure them? How do they manage them? And with the deprecation of Windows Embedded and a lot of the solutions that used to provide this functionality, I think Cloud Ready, Chrome OS, and Citrix can kind of fill that gap really nicely. And it's been proven to be filled really nicely with a number of financial customers that we've worked with in the recent past, in turning, basically installing Cloud Ready on an existing device running Windows Embedded, connecting to their Citrix infrastructure through a clever policy that Citrix kind of provides for the Chrome Enterprise console called beacon policies, which allow organizations to both define their internal storefront environment and their externally facing, more secure NetScaler access gateway through one single point of management and policy, basically allowing their users to take the device from an on-premise connection or Wi-Fi network to a external insecure network through the NetScaler access gateway, and roam seamlessly between environments without the worry of how do I manage the device, how do I secure the device, and how do I provide the functionality that my users need. So that's a well-studied case study that we've kind of seen in action. I don't know, Forrest, if you have anything to add there.
I would just say that the thing that's powerful there, beyond leveraging kind of these great Citrix tools to the fullest extent, is that you get another example of how devices can be more flexible, work in more environments for more different use cases when you have the opportunity to take a laptop instead of a desktop thin client and use it inside or outside the network, connecting to different infrastructure, whether it's SaaS apps or Citrix local or Citrix remote hosted. We love the idea. In fact, we're committed to the idea that a device should be able to do any job you need it to. And this is just a great tool to make that happen.
Okay, and then next question is building on something that we were talking about a little bit earlier with Richard. So it's about telling us a little bit more about how do you convert Cloud Ready from thin client operation to full desktop user mode. So
Sure.
That one, I think, Richard, if you wanna jump in on that one.
Yeah. So if you had say either Cloud Ready or Chrome OS, the way to reconfigure it is exactly the same way. And Cloud Ready will behave in this way exactly like a Chrome device. And so what the Chrome admin would need to do is simply go into the Chrome Management Console, or they could actually be using a third-party enterprise mobility management tool or UEM tool, such as Citrix Endpoint Management. And then they would simply change the kiosk settings by removing the automatically installed app, removing the kiosk mode, and then by removing the kiosk settings, it then defaults into just a logged in user mode. That whole operation, start to finish, if you had an incredibly slow network and you're really fumbling around, might take you 4 to 5 minutes. So anyone who has familiarity with the console could do it in about 2 minutes. So it's very easy to do, and then you could do the operation to do that for one user versus 10,000 users is the same. It's the same amount of time. You just have all those users in their organization units, and then all those devices in the org units, and then you would just change those policies. And those would be device level policies that you put in to switch them away from kiosk mode. And you might have user policies that would be specific to all your users. And those you would put in for the logged in user mode to help configure and customize their experience.
Fantastic, thank you. And next question is about G Suite and Citrix. So I think this is probably a good one for you, Damon. But it's, can you do G Suite single sign-on into the Citrix Workspace app?
Yes, you can. You can do, there is an integration piece between G Suite and Citrix SSO. So you can do that.
Excellent. Perfect, thank you. All right, it seems like that's the end of our questions. So I want to once again thank our guests. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Damon, so much for joining us today. And as I mentioned, this will obviously be posted as a recording on the Neverware YouTube channel. So thanks very much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.